Someone I'm a big fan of. Hi, Dr. Mark. Sorry
Hi,
for the
can you hear me
technical
now?
errors. Yes, I can hear you
Oh, great.
properly.
Thank you. Are you in Indonesia? I'm in Maui. That's pretty amazing, right?
It's pretty amazing. I'm in Bali and you're in Maui.
Yeah,
How
two
life has
very,
changed since the pandemic, huh? We get to
it's
be where we
true.
want to be.
It's true, right? It's fantastic.
Well, I'm so excited to introduce you to all of my followers. Dr. Mark Hyman is a great functional doctor. He's also a family physician, so he understands traditional medicine too. And for me, he is someone who's very concerned over not just the health of the individual through food that he considers his medicine, but also for the health and the happiness of the planet. So thank you so much for doing the work that you do. Sorry, I'm a
Of
bit
course.
frazzled over the mic and everything.
Oh, it's okay. Technical problems. That's the least of our worries. We have bigger things to worry about.
Uh, so I just finished reading your book, The Pagan Diet. What what a unique name for a diet. I wanted you to explain what it is. I know
Yeah,
it's a mix of the paleo and vegan diet. Paleo, which is a high fat, low sugar, low carb diet mixed with a all plant-based vegan diet. How does that work?
yeah.
And
It sounds like
yeah,
a
I'm
total
excited to hear all
contradiction,
about
right?
it because us actresses, we want to be slim, fit, fabulous,
Right, right.
and
Yeah,
we
well,
want to share that with the world.
people are just so confused, and every day there's a different diet. Every day we should eat this and not eat that, and we hear we should be paleo, we should be vegan, we should be keto, we should do intermittent fasting, we should be low fat, low carb. Everybody's just confused. And
Hmm.
the origin of the Pagan diet was basically a joke.
Okay.
I was sitting on a panel with a couple of friends. One was a doctor who was a cardiologist who was vegan, pretty militant vegan, and the other
Hmm.
was a paleo doctor, and they were fighting back and forth like cats and dogs. And I was like, man, if you're paleo, you're vegan, I must be Pagan. And I made a joke because there was so much tension in the room, and everybody laughed. And then I thought, well, maybe there's something to this. And I went home and I started thinking about it and realized that they're identical except for where to get protein, animals or grains and beans. Otherwise, the basic foundational principles of sound eating are the same. We should all be eating real whole foods. We shouldn't be eating a lot of processed foods full of additives,
Hmm.
chemicals, pesticides, GMO. We all should be eating lots of fruits and vegetables. We should all be eating lots of good nuts and seeds. We should all be eating good fats. We
Hmm.
should all be eating foods that are raised in a way that supports the health of the planet and protects the animals. We should be, if we're
Right.
eating animals, we should be eating in a way that actually restores health and regenerates the climate. Everybody agrees on that. Where things get confusing is around the edges, right? The paleo and vegan are identical except to get where you get their protein. It's animals or grains and beans. And,
Exactly.
and so we kind of have to get rid of all the noise and say, what we agree on is far more than what we disagree on. Let's talk about how we change the food system and how we encourage people to eat real whole food as opposed to what people are eating, which is about 60% of their diet is ultra processed food. And increasingly around the world in the global community, we're seeing American food corporations taking over and bringing in all their processed ingredients, all their processed food, and taking over the global markets, including with fast foods everywhere, where you used to not be able to see that in the developed or developing world. Now it's everywhere. And so
Right.
it's created this massive epidemic of chronic disease and diabetes and heart disease, and all the Western diseases are now all over the world. In fact, diabetes, the number one country with cases of diabetes is China, India, you know,
Wow.
it's not so much infectious disease anymore. It's far more people die every year from chronic lifestyle related diseases and diet related diseases than they do from infectious diseases, which typically were affecting the population, way before, this century. So we really have this moment where we've gotten so divorced from our traditional foods. We've gotten so divorced from the
Right.
origin of where our food comes from. And we don't even know what is good for us or not anymore. And it's really, kind of grandmother's kitchen sink wisdom combined with nutritional science to come up with 21 practical principles for reclaiming your health that's inclusive, that's delicious, it's not meant to be divisive, and it's focused on some really simple principles like food is medicine. If you
Right.
understand that, when you put a Twinkie in your mouth or some processed chip, what is that? Is that good medicine or bad medicine? Is it going to heal you or is it going to harm you? If you take a fruit off a tree, I was on a hike here in Maui the other day, and it was some wild passion fruit, and I had never seen it before. It was this long, skinny thing, and it was really weird. But I picked it off the tree and I ate it. And I'm still alive. But that's actually real food, and that's full of
Yeah,
colorful phytochemicals that are healing and full of vitamins and minerals. It's very different. And when you understand that it's not about the calories, everybody's, oh, we have to eat less calories to lose weight, or we have to eat less calories.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
about the calories. It's about the quality of the calories. So the
yeah,
quality of a grass-finished cow is different than the quality of a feedlot cow. The quality of an heirloom
yeah,
grain grown, in a regenerative way is different than a wheat grown in a monocrop field sprayed with all sorts of chemicals
right.
and super starchy and very different. Even though they're all grains, they're all meat, they're very different in quality. So quality really matters, and food is medicine is really the guiding principle of the Pagan diet.
Yeah, let food be thy medicine. Let thy
That's
food
right.
be thy medicine. Hippocrates.
That's right.
I really like that. I mean, I completely agree with you. And I think what's sad to see is people are thinking that all food is the same, and especially people who are on diets, they're always calorie counting, and the truth is we all know about nutrient density, at least the ones that are concerned with health, that it's not just calories but how many nutrients or how much nutrients are in the calories that we eat that can actually help our gut, help our overall health. So you talk a lot in your book about phytochemicals and phytonutrients. Can you explain to the viewers what these are
Yeah.
and how these affect gut health, overall health, and where we can find them in our food, and how we
Yeah.
can make choices within our budgets
Yeah.
to make ourselves more healthy with what we consume?
Absolutely. It's so important to understand that, food is far more than just calories or vitamins and minerals or protein, fat, carbs, or fiber, that it contains these medicinal compounds called phytochemicals. And there's 25,000 of them or more in the plant kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have different properties, and they work with our bodies in a synergistic way to create health. So we think, oh, if you don't have enough, this or that nutrient, we'll get a deficiency. Well, that's true, but if you don't have enough of these, you get these what we call long latency deficiency diseases, meaning you get arthritis or autoimmune disease or heart disease or cancer or diabetes, because these are compounds which we have evolved within the plant kingdom to regulate our body's function. So, for example,
Right.
if I'm exposed to some environmental chemicals or something,
Mm-hmm.
how does my body get rid of it? It needs to produce a molecule called glutathione. Well, that
Okay.
molecule, we have to make it, right? But it turns out that if you eat a lot of broccoli or collards or kale or kohlrabi or cabbage or Brussels sprouts, it contains these phytochemicals called glucosinolates that make you make more of this compound and help your body detoxify.
Right.
If you want to have a healthy gut microbiome, you need the
Mm-hmm.
medicines in food. You need prebiotic foods like jicama and seaweed and artichokes and asparagus that have certain fibers that the bacteria in your gut love to eat. Or maybe the bacteria might even like to eat these other chemicals called polyphenols. So certain bacteria really need cranberry and pomegranate and green tea. So by having a wide variety of these compounds, we can regulate our hormones. I mean, spices are amazing. Like turmeric, for example, regulates the immune system.
We
So we
cook
have
with a lot of that in Indonesia.
that's right. So all the spicy foods, all the things that make foods taste good, not from a salt and sugar and processed
And
food taste good.
MSG.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the natural ingredients in plant kingdom that we've evolved with to regulate our biology and to heal us. So this is so important for people to understand that food can heal or can harm, and you can upgrade or downgrade your biology with every bite. And all you have to do is focus on quality, on this idea of food as information. So you pick something up to eat. Are you picking up an avocado, which is just an avocado, or you're picking up some industrial food product? It's all kinds of chemicals and high amounts of sugar and salt and processed fats. It's
Mhm.
going to harm you. And then you think, oh, it might not be so bad right this one time. And maybe it won't be if you just eat it once. But if it becomes a staple of our diet, and it is, it's about 60% of our diet,
Mhm.
we're in trouble.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we've gone far and beyond. Like this, there's this huge disconnect now, especially in young people, that what we eat is actually what we are made of. You know, you are what you eat. You hear it all the time. But then in the process of, you know, going about our daily chores, we forget because we're not conscious. I actually, meditation has helped me become more conscious with my actions, especially with what I put in my mouth. And I think people need to be reminded of that connection. Like, you are what you eat, so think about what you're eating. And a lot of people also believe that, you know, it's only for a certain class of people that you can eat healthy. Only if you have a chef, or that's
No.
because it's your job to be a model, to be an actress, to stay slim, that you're very concerned with health. But I think everyone has to have that responsibility to understand that connection between health, I mean, food, nutrition, health, chronic disease, and right now, COVID-19. So
Yeah.
what is the connection, and how can we better ourselves to keep our immunity at an all-time high and optimal health in your
Well, I mean,
eyes?
this is a great series of questions. The first is about, affordability and how do we do it. The second is about our immune health and COVID.
Yeah,
In terms of the first question, when you look at traditional cultures, they didn't have all these chronic diseases. They didn't have obesity.
exactly.
They were eating
Yeah.
their traditional diets, which were made
Mhm.
from ingredients that were local and affordable and accessible. So it's not
Right.
like we're talking about people importing some caviar from Russia or some grass-fed bison from Montana or some crazy thing. We're talking about people getting connected back to their traditional foods and their indigenous foods, what they all evolved and grew up with. And that's what
Right.
promoted health. We've lost so much of that. I mean, traditional Indonesian food is great, but when you
Yeah.
start piling on all the tons of rice and all the extra stuff, it becomes more modernized and westernized. It's not good for us. So it's really important to understand that you can eat really well for less if you're smart
Yes.
about it and you pick the right foods, the right ingredients. And we've seen this in America, even in America, where you can say it was expensive to eat well, but the studies have been done. It really isn't. And I've seen um, very amazing changes in people's diets when people have very few resources and we're on disability or food stamps, which is government assistance for food.
Hmm.
They were able to figure it out in terrible food deserts by just choosing
Hmm.
simple, real ingredients, just grains and beans, nuts and seeds. You don't have to buy the most expensive cuts of animal foods, but you can get more local stuff. You can buy directly from the farmers or the
Hmm.
local resources.
Right.
So it's really kind of a myth that it's expensive, but it requires us getting back to our traditional indigenous ways of understanding our relationship to the earth, our community, our land, and reclaiming that. The second question is about immunity and COVID, and I think we are in trouble globally, and I think in America more than ever because we're all gaining weight. There are now over 2.5 billion people that are overweight in the world, which is more than twice, almost 3 times as many people who are hungry. So we have a
Right.
obesity and weight issue in the world globally. This is not just in the Western countries, and I think
Right.
that what people understand is that poor metabolic health puts you at super high risk of dying from COVID.
Right.
You see people who are obese, they have 3 times the risk of death or ending up in the ICU as people who are thin and healthy. So the biggest thing you can do during COVID is not to indulge in all sorts of sweets and starchy foods and comfort foods, but to double
Comfort
down on your
foods. Yeah.
health. Yeah, double down on your health and eat more according to what I would say are the Pagan principles, which is real food and lots of fruits and vegetables and lots of good fats and nuts and seeds and clean protein. These are just simple principles that no one can argue with, that are the foundations of good science and nutrition, but they make a huge difference. And your metabolic health can improve really in days, even in a few weeks. You can literally reverse so many conditions by swapping out the bad
Just
food for the
eating
good.
well.
Yep, eating well.
Wow. Well, a lot of friends have asked me, what is a functional doctor? Like, the term functional medicine for us is still
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
foreign here
Sure,
in
of course, of
Indonesia.
course, of course.
So can you explain what it is and the
Yes.
principles that guide it and the systems and how it's connected to our whole bodily functions? Really
Hmm.
need to know this before we move on to
Well, I think
the
I
next questions.
yeah. I mean, I think I'm sort of an ecological doctor. I see how everything is connected. I see
Right.
how all the body is not a bunch of separate organs and parts. That it's one system. That it's one
Hmm.
whole integrated system that is all interconnected. And that if you
Right.
focus on the root cause of disease, you can treat all sorts of problems. And for so many of the things that people suffer from now, the root cause is our food. And bad food makes us sick, and good food heals us. And it sounds like, oh, that sounds nice, but what if you're really sick with some terrible problem, right? You know, so I had a patient, for example, who was severely overweight. She had heart failure, kidney failure, diabetes, high blood pressure, liver failure starting as well. She was on a bunch of medications. She was 65 and, you know, basically 1 foot in the grave. And her weight, you know, she was, you know, well over 250 pounds and like 5'2" and just very obese, you know.
Yeah.
And within 3 days, she was able to get off her insulin by changing her diet. Within 3 months, she was off all her medications. Her heart failure reversed, her diabetes reversed, her blood pressure normalized, her kidneys normalized, her liver normalized. In a year, she lost 116 pounds. And it wasn't about the weight loss. It was about the quality of the information we had her put in her body. All she was eating before was junk food and processed food.
So food is information, basically.
Yeah, food is information. So functional medicine helps you treat all these different problems, not separately, but by treating the root cause, which is often our lifestyle and diet. And there's a few other things for sure, but really it's about getting to the root cause of all of it.
So there's 7 systems, right, in functional medicine. How does food impact each system?
Yeah, so we know in traditional medicine we have like 155,000 diseases. In functional medicine, we say there's 7 systems that have to be in balance for you to be healthy, and if you're out of balance, you're unhealthy. And the key to health is figuring out how those systems are in balance or out of balance, and then correcting it. And food affects every single one of those.
Keeping it in harmony and working together
like a big
instead of
ecosystem.
against each other.
Right. And so, like, for example, the systems are your gut, your immune system, how you make energy, how you detoxify, your circulatory system, your communication systems, hormones, and your structural system, your body, mechanics, all the way down to your cells.
Your muscles, your bones, everything. Okay.
And the food is the biggest regulator of all these systems. So let's just take the first one, your gut. You're putting pounds of stuff in your mouth every day that's changing the bacteria that live in your gut. And the bacteria that live in your gut determines so much about your health. We're learning with the microbiome that it affects everything from cancer to heart disease to diabetes to depression to Alzheimer's to autism. Autoimmune diseases are regulated by your gut. But what you do every day, if you're feeding good foods to these bugs in your gut, it's like tending a good garden. But if you're not, it's harmful. So your gut needs prebiotic foods, like I was mentioning, jicama, asparagus, artichokes, seaweed, those are great. Or probiotic foods like kimchi or sauerkraut or fermented pickles or fermented foods. You know, I mean, even tempeh, which is a big food in Indonesia, you know, that also is a fermented food. So those are all good for your gut. And you need also polyphenols, all these phytochemicals that you were talking about, these colorful plant compounds that helps feed the good guys. When you feed those bacteria processed food and refined oils, you produce all sorts of bad bugs that create poor health. Your immune system.
So if you eat well, sorry to cut you off. I mean, if you eat well, more good bugs grow, and there's like, it's almost like my imagination is like, okay, if you eat something healthy, then the good bugs grow, the good ones. But then if you eat something unhealthy, it's like the bugs that are terrorists in your gut, like attacking your system. Is that right?
Yes, 100%. It's like the inner terrorist, you know.
And before, you know, in the past, I didn't really understand. Honestly, I was also quite a bad eater growing up. I just never got educated this way. But since the past 2 years, I've realized that, you know, I was inflammaging, literally inflammaging, like had acne. I was a little bit overweight. I was just soft, even though I exercised so much. And then I read about microbiome and the gut health and everything. And I went on like a 21-day reset with no sugar. And literally dreamt of sugar every night. And the doctor said, well, the nutritionist said, it's your bad bugs trying to get some sugar and trying to get you to eat what they like because they're dying off. And I'm like, what? There's a war in my stomach? What's going on?
Yes, exactly.
I didn't even know about all that. And here I am talking to you. So I'm learning so much more. And talking about sugar, I want to talk about insulin resistance. What is it? How do we prevent it? How do we cure it? And I know it's the leading cause of chronic disease now. How do we really be sure that we can understand it enough so that we can avoid the foods that create it?
Well, you know, this is something that people don't really know much about, but it's really the driver of all age-related diseases and inflammation, right? It causes heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, even depression. And it's really a process by where our hormones get out of balance that regulate our metabolism and our appetite and help us put on weight. And when we eat starch and sugar in the amounts that we're eating, which is increasing around the world, in America it's about 1 pound a day per person of flour and sugar, which is a lot.
Right.
And it could be rice, it could be whatever, white rice. That starch and sugar spikes your blood level of blood sugar, which then makes your insulin go up. When insulin goes up, it creates a cascade of problems. It pushes all the fat into the fat cells, it locks it in there so they can't get out, it slows your metabolism down, and it makes you hungry. So it's like the worst possible thing. You can never lose weight as long as your insulin level is high. So insulin resistance is so common in America. It's 1 in 2 Americans have diabetes or type 2 diabetes. But like I said, the #1 country in the world with diabetes is China. #2 is India. And increasingly in Indonesia and other places, we're seeing increasing rates, even in lower body weight. So that's the problem. If you're Asian, or you're from Indonesia or Asia, at lower body weights, without even being very overweight, with a little bit of belly fat, you can become insulin resistant, and that leads to all the same problems and the risks in terms of heart attacks, cancers, and strokes, and so forth.
Wow.
So the key is to cut down the sugar and starch and eat more whole, real food, which is the whole point of the Pagan diet, which is why I wrote the book.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to share actually the information from the book. But talking about food and mood, in all these movies, they show like when you have a bad breakup, eat that ice cream, go and eat that cake, eat a cookie, comfort yourself with food. I like the part in your book, the connection between food and mood. And we know that 2020 was such a rough year for most of us, especially in terms of mental health. A lot of people, didn't deal with the pandemic so well. So I wanted to ask you, how do we combat depression, anxiety with the foods we eat when our mind says, okay, sugar is what heals, sugar is comfort, sugar will give us the high? What kind of foods can we replace that with? And can you make us understand fully, like, what is the connection between mental health and good food and good eating habits?
Well, most people know that, if they eat certain things, they might feel tired or sluggish or whatever. But most people don't connect the dots between what they eat and how they feel. And it turns out that your brain responds to what you eat. And if you eat bad food, you will have bad brain function. And if you eat good food, you'll have good brain function. And this is not just theoretical. We know, for example, that in large clinical trials, they swap out junk food and they give them healthy food. One large trial was called the SMILES trial, I think in Australia.
Yeah.
They were able to reduce depression as much as any medication or better. We know that it affects behavior too. That we know in juvenile delinquents, you could reduce the violent behavior by 91% by getting rid of the junk food and eating real food. And not only that, 100% reduction in suicide rates in these kids. Now, in teenage boys in America, it's the 3rd leading cause of death. So imagine if there was a drug that could eliminate suicides 100% in kids. Wouldn't that be a blockbuster drug? But that's what food can do. Food is that powerful, So it's really important to understand that food plays a huge role in your mood and energy and focus and brain function. And that people often think, oh, I'm depressed or I'm anxious or I'm whatever. It may not be that that's their inherent personality. It may be because their diet is screwing up their brain function. And by switching their diet to eat a real whole food diet, they can actually really do very well.
That's great to know. So if you don't eat well, it also kind of stunts your intellectual development.
Yes. I mean, we know, for example, from large studies that kids who grow up on junk food and processed food, they don't perform well in school, they're academically not doing well, they can't focus, they can't pay attention, they don't end up going to college or getting good jobs or having good relationships. I mean, it's just dramatic consequences for these kids' health by not eating the right things.
Yeah, and I also read in your book that you said medicines like antidepressants only work for people who are severely depressed, not just mildly depressed. So maybe some of us who are mildly depressed have like just bad mood swings. Maybe it's the food we eat. Like we have high sugar spikes and then just crash and burn when we don't have it. And it's like all these addictions, right?
Yeah, panic attacks, anxiety. I mean, all that stuff can happen as a result of swings in blood sugar and energy.
Yeah, I really enjoyed reading your book, especially your explanation over what a regenerist is. I
Yeah,
think all of us want to know what is being a regenerist and what is the concept of regeneration in not just food, but just our lives.
that's a great question. So, what I try to do is sort of try to describe a way of eating that regenerates human health and planetary health. And even our
Mhm.
communities and our farm communities and our social systems all are affected by food. So how do we create a regenerative culture where we regenerate and heal and bring back renewal? Well, it turns out that, the food we're growing and how we're
Mhm.
growing it is both degenerating our health and planetary health, right? We're growing all this
Right.
processed food, this turn to junk food and fast food. That's killing us. But worse is
Yeah.
that we're destroying the soil and we have a destructive, extractive agricultural system that mines the soil, that kills the microbial life in the soil, which is needed to get the nutrients from the plants. So basically, it becomes dead.
Right.
It becomes dirt, not soil. Though
Hmm.
this soil holds water, it prevents droughts and floods. It actually can suck out carbon from the atmosphere. So we know there's
Yeah.
a big issue with climate change. And it turns out that a third of all the greenhouse gases currently in the atmosphere, which is about 1 trillion tons, a third of that, or
Hmm.
300 billion tons, comes from soil erosion, from bad farming practices. And then when you till the soil, when you grow plants in it, the plants can't really extract the nutrients in the soil because the carbon in the soil that's there is feeding the microbial life, like the microbiome of the soil. And if there's no carbon, the soil's dead, which is basically what it is with dirt, then the plants can't get those nutrients. So regenerative agriculture and regenerative health is really about growing food in a way that
They'll have to develop all of that.
but I bet it's already been there.
My grandma
It's been
says,
there for thousands
sorry.
of years in that culture. It's been there for thousands of years. There are probably local farmers and local people who are growing animals, and it's there. I bet it's there more in Indonesia than you'd imagine because a lot of those traditional ways are still there. It's just the industrial food
You're
has
right.
come in and flooded all the supermarkets and flooded the restaurants. But I'm sure you can find, in some ways, more than you can
For
here,
sure.
local. And they might not call it regenerative, they might not call it organic, but it's food that's grown in traditional ways and traditional species of foods and not GMO foods and not weird seeds, but actually they're traditional food.
Yeah, I think you did mention the basics of health, just like good air, good water, good soil, good food. So my grandmother, she's 84 right now, and she says actually the people who eat the best in Indonesia, and we're the hugest, the biggest archipelago in the world, are on like these little islands. They're like super poor or like the super rich who have chefs and nutritionists and who can, get and source these foods. So the middle ground here, like most of us, that's the danger zone because you go
Yes.
to supermarket, you don't have the time to kind of source for special kind of indigenous foods. So I think my grandma is very wise in that sense. I think I'm starting to believe it
She's
for sure.
right. She's 100% right, for sure.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to, that's why I want people to read your book because I feel like it will empower them to take control over their health, take control over the decisions that they make. Know that whatever they're consuming is also making an impact to the world, to the
Yeah,
environment. The choices they make are actually giving farmers more power to grow the food in a healthier way. Can you explain
absolutely.
how how powerful that is to choose foods that can actually change
Well, yeah.
agricultural methods in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's happening, and people demand different foods they're provided. So you've got a lot of these big companies now that are buying up other companies that are producing healthier food because the consumer wants that. Or there are companies like General Mills and Danone, which are a big
Yeah.
yogurt or cereal company. They're actually
Mhm.
funding farmers to grow food in a regenerative way. They're teaching farmers to convert over. So there's the real change
Mhm.
that happen when we as individuals make choices. We vote with our vote, we vote with our dollars, we vote with our
Mhm.
fork. And so those
Right.
choices matter. So imagine if everybody tomorrow stopped shopping never went to McDonald's again, or never bought a
Yeah.
Coca-Cola again. It would change
Yeah.
the world. It would change
Yeah,
the
that would
world.
change the world.
We
Mhm.
have the power. We have the dollars. We have the power. So, or whatever currency is the bot. As what is it is it
Rupiah,
Rupia, rupia.
Indonesian
Okay, okay,
rupiah.
okay. And rupia, and but we don't realize how strong that is. And so our consumer choices make a big difference in driving the market, in driving governments, and driving policy.
Right. You know, Indonesia is a big population. We're the fourth biggest population in the world.
Really?
So I think you talking to us, it's I hope it'll make a huge, huge difference. And I wanted to share a little bit about your book. I really enjoyed reading it. A lot of eye-opening information. But if anyone out there wanted to start on this Pagan diet, how do they start and what are the guiding principles?
Well, so the first thing is just to understand that whenever you make a choice of putting something in your mouth, ask yourself a simple question. Is this food or is this a food-like substance? Is this something
Right.
that was made in nature or that God made, or was this something that man made? Now, not everything that's made by men and humans is bad, but it's a very simple idea. The second question is, what's the quality of this food? You know, is
Mhm.
it some feedlot piece of beef, or is it something that's grown by my local neighbor who has grass-fed cows, right? Think about the quality. And then the real key is really simple, is as best you can, eliminate industrial processed food and eat real
Right.
food. It's so
Right.
simple. You know, I always joke and I say when I speak to churches or I speak to faith-based wellness community, I say it's really simple. Ask yourself a question. Did God make this or did man make this? Did God make a Twinkie? No. Did God make an avocado? Yes. It's pretty simple. Even a third grader or a kindergartner could understand this concept. And so, whatever you're choosing, just choose real food. If you just start there, think about how
Choose
many
real
steps it
food.
took to get from the field to the fork. You know,
Right.
did it go through a bunch of factories, or did someone just pick a tomato and then it's
Pick
in
it and you
the
can
yeah,
just peel it and eat
right,
it.
right. That's a really important principle is eat real food. And sometimes foods is packaged is fine if it's a can
Yeah.
of fish or something or a can of coconut milk or if it's something you recognize. But if it's got a weird long list of ingredients you can't pronounce, you just don't want to eat it. And then you want to really double down on eating lots of plant foods. And I don't say be vegan, but I say make sure it's plant rich. 75% of your
Right.
plate should be veggies. You want to also include a lot of good fats, so avocados, olive oil, nuts and seeds, coconut, good fats that help your body function better and cut the hunger.
Right.
And then of course, you want to make sure if you're eating animals, not everybody,
Right.
and there's a whole chapter on how to be a healthy vegan, which is not easy to do, but it's possible. I mean, how are they raised? What were the conditions? Or is it humane? Were they pumped full of hormones and antibiotics? Or is it a more of a grass-finished cow or a free grazing chicken, pasture-raised chicken? Or maybe even better,
Mhm.
some wild food. I mean, I'm in Maui here, and there's tons of wild deer and boar that have got out.
Right.
And so, there's all kinds of ways to eat food that's more traditionally raised. And I think if we stick to those principles, all of us will do so much better for our health.
Yeah. But the I think the difficulty and the challenge is how to create these new habits because natural foods obviously it goes bad faster. So you have to go to the grocery store more often, you have to go to the market, the local markets to source more often and that's a new habit for many of us living the modern, fast-paced life.
Yeah,
So what are your
yeah,
suggestions? Because in the book, I loved your story about how you go to the grocery store with your children, you plan meals together, you talk
yeah, yeah.
about nutrition, you cook together, create new recipes full of nutritional food, and your kids kind of understand this, have this connection since they were young. They're so lucky, We, you know, we mere mortals, we we kind of get sick first, and then we're like, oh, how do we get better? Oh my God, what happened? Am I eating the
Right.
wrong stuff? Should I take medicines? And
Yeah.
I feel like now I understand that medicine, a lot of medicine is just alleviating the symptoms, but not actually getting to the root cause. And
That's
that's
right.
why I love functional medicine and reading about it, because
Yeah.
you want to get to the root cause, even with mental illness or
Of course.
traumas.
Of
You
course.
want to get to the root cause, like why? Why did you become this way? Why did you get sick mentally, physically? What are you doing every day that causes that to, you know, you feed the disease instead of feeding the health? What can you do to feed the health? So can you just maybe enlighten us, shed some light on how you manage to change habits for young people or that your patients,
I
so
mean,
that we can start using
yeah.
those principles and change our
I mean,
lives?
first it's education, right? People have to
Yeah.
understand. Then it's motivation, right? Why? What's the
Mhm.
why for people? Is it because they
Right.
want to feel better? Because
Right.
maybe you want to go play with your grandkids, or maybe because you want to go on an adventure and you don't feel well enough to go, or
Mhm.
maybe you want to be able to be more devoted to your mission in life and in work and be successful, which you can't do if you don't feel well. So figure out the
Right.
motivation. So education, motivation, and the last principle is really collaboration, because our connection, because we
Okay.
do better together. If we try to change on our own, it's very hard. So whether it's a health coach, whether it's a friend, whether it's a group,
Okay.
whether it's your family members, finding a buddy, an accountability
Mhm.
buddy, I call it, and
Finding a friend. Yeah.
a friend. Yeah, I say friend
You
power
said
is
friend
way
power in the book.
yeah, friend power is way more important than willpower, because you really try to white
Right.
knuckle it, you're not going to win. And if you can have someone in
Right.
your life or a group, I mean, that's what we did with this big church. We got 15,000 people who met in 5,000 small groups and shared together how to help each other, and they were amazing. They lost 250,000 pounds. They got healthy. It was really through the power of the community. And I always say, community is medicine. Food is medicine, but so is community.
So is community connection, personal connection, love, all that is also contributes to good health. Um, I wanted you to expand on how you built those habits in your family. Like, how did it start? Like, how often you sit down, write recipes? How
Yeah,
did you
I mean,
educate
I've
your
always been
children?
into it. I mean, my kids are older now, but I always was into it. And we had a garden from when they were little, so they planted the seeds,
Right,
they watered the seeds, they weeded the garden, they
right,
they saw the vegetables grow, they picked them off the garden. We then prepared them in the kitchen. I mean, we created a whole experience for them, so they were in direct relationship to the food. And then I got them in the kitchen, even when they were
right.
like babies. My son was like, I think it was maybe 10 months old, and he's like making flour and making a mess with everything. It's okay. And we had a book called Pretend Soup, which is a whole bunch of recipes for kids that are healthy that you can make with your kids that are fun.
Right.
So make it fun, and I think involve them. We didn't see cooking as a chore. We saw it as a privilege and as a time to
Right.
gather, put on fun music, to prepare food together, to enjoy food together. It was more of a rich family ritual, and we ate dinner most nights together. I mean, I was very deliberate about it, and it turns out that when you have family dinners where people are eating together and hopefully good food, that the kids
Yes.
are less likely to be overweight, they do better in school, they're less likely to have eating disorders, less likely to have addictions or alcohol problems, depression,
Hmm.
suicide, all dramatically goes down simply because you sit down with your kids and have dinner. It's really pretty
Have dinner,
amazing.
have a good conversation, share love. No, that's true. There's such a huge disconnect. Like my little cousins, they can't connect that the chicken they see running around is the chicken that they're eating. Like they can't connect that that is the same animal. So I really do feel that the kids nowadays need more education in terms of nutrition and what they're eating. So thank you for that. I like how you said a new, like eating well is it's a new skill, so it takes hard work. It takes dedication and requires a lot of focus and attention, just like a marriage, you know.
Yeah, it's true,
Um,
but the truth is, once you learn the skill, I mean, say, well, you can drive a car, but like, it's a little scary to drive a car. It's a big thing. It all could go wrong. But everybody, figures out. You take lessons, you learn, and then it's pretty easy to drive a car, right? And the same thing with cooking. Once you learn the
right,
basic skills, if you don't know how to chop
right,
a vegetable or peel garlic or how to stir fry anything or how to roast or bake, if you don't know the basic principles, it's very hard. But if you learn those
yeah,
principles, which are not rocket science, and most of us are really good at operating our phone, if we can do that, we certainly can learn how to cook. Um, then all of a sudden it becomes easy and fun and doesn't have to take that much time and it's not that arduous and you can enjoy delicious food together with the people you love. It's really one of my favorite things to do is just make food with people and eat and be together and have fun.
That sounds so good. Thank you so much for the beautiful talk. Guys, if you have a chance to get the Pagan diet, it's great. How to maintain, how to get healthy, how to stay healthy, stay fit, stay fabulous, maintain it. And what I like about your diet is, actually, why don't you sell the book a little bit? Because there's this ketogenic diet, all these therapeutic diets like immuno-paleo diet. It's confusing and it's bewildering and I don't even know where to start. What's the difference between those diets and yours, and why should we buy your book and believe in you?
Yeah, there are different therapeutic diets out there that are applicable for different people, but there's a common set of nutritional principles that almost all scientists agree on. And you mix that with little grandmother's kitchen wisdom, and you get a set of principles that can guide you in eating, that are not extreme, that are not, eliminating huge categories of food, that allow you to choose food as medicine with quality and deliciousness and enjoyment. And it's really giving you, the tools you need to understand how to work with your body and how to eat real food. Because if it's like an instruction manual. I mean, how many of us got an instruction manual that came with our bodies? I mean, did you get one? It wasn't strapped to my leg when I was born.
No, the iPhone has one.
Yeah,
I see our lives like that. Like we need guiding principles, right? For to function well in this world.
Right. And so this is really designed to be like a guidebook for your human body on how to take care of it. We only get this one body. We need to learn how to nurture it and fuel it and take care of it properly. And most of us just have no clue how to do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for shedding your beautiful light on this confusing world and complex world of nutrition. Thank you so much, Doctor. I hope all of us will remember that, our own health, we can take control of our own health. And I hope that everyone gets a chance to read or at least learn about the book and empower themselves to change not just their own bodies and their own health, but the health of the planet.
Yeah, maybe I'll get to Bali soon. Who knows?
Yes, you should. You should definitely. Actually, one of my dreams is to have a book of recipes for just third world countries.
Yeah.
Because there's so many kids. I mean, I just came back from Sumba. Like 60% of kids under the age of 5 are malnourished.
Wow.
And Sumba, when I went, it was raining every day, so it was lush, it was green. The vegetation was amazing. Like how are kids over there malnourished? Like there must be some old wisdoms that are gone now. People don't know what to eat. Yeah, so
it's true.
I'd love to just invite you over and just be like a vampire and suck all that knowledge and good stuff to better my country.
You can do that. Well, thanks so much for having me on your Instagram Live. It's been great chatting. Good luck, everybody, and I just wish you all good health.
Thank you. I'm also filming this, so I'll get subtitles so the Indonesian viewers can watch it on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a fit, happy New Year. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Terima kasih udah dengerin chat aku sama Dr. Mark Hyman. Aku tahu itu semuanya bahasa Inggris, so I'm going to, I have recorded it. I will do the subtitles. Aku akan tulis subtitles supaya kalian ngerti, tapi basically dokter itu bilang makanan adalah obat. Jadi apa yang kita makan itu menentukan kualitas kehidupan kita dan kesehatan kita. So I wanted to share, because this year during the pandemic, aku juga ngerasa banyak banget teman-teman yang nanya, aduh gimana nih Kak, aku sedih banget, like mental health stuff. Everyone's been asking me about all this health stuff. And the beginning of the pandemic, I had a Wellness Wednesday show. Dan banyak banget yang tune in setiap Wednesday, but I haven't had time to do that because work has been flowing, even though it's the pandemic. But there's so much work that has come right now with scripts and some projects that I'm doing. But I want to be conscious, and I have still the intent to share wellness and health tips with all of you. Aku beruntung banget bahwa sejak pandemi ini kesehatan aku juga sebenarnya it's been improved because I have been reading books like the Pagan diet. I've been watching all sorts of YouTube videos trying to find out the root causes of, yes, I had acne, so connection. I mean, because I'm a vein pot, I do feel like what you eat has a direct impact on your health just by visually looking at my face. Like when I eat dairy and sugar, the next few days I can see, like, maybe I'm very sensitive, my skin is very sensitive, but like all the makeup in the world, all the beauty products in the world cannot help you if you're not healthy. Real beauty comes from health, physical health, nutritional health, of course, what you eat, but also mental health. I think the most beautiful people I've ever met in this world are people who are happy and who are healthy. So I want to inspire all of you to keep being happy and healthy. You know, it's really hard to balance. I feel like if it's not your job, a lot of people are like, it's not my job to be slim. It's not my job to look like you or to be like you. Of course. Actually, nowhere in my job description do I have to be happy and healthy and all that. I just have to, you know, be a good actress, memorize scripts. But I guess, of course, beauty helps. But health has always been my concern because I've struggled so much with like bad skin, bad digestive problems. It's really stunted my intellectual development as well because I feel a lot of anxiety, like palpitations, due to my digestive problems. And I wanted to share with all of you how you can be the best human you want to be, and you can climb mountains and do all these things I've been doing this past few years if you just take care of your health. You make time for yourself, make time for your families to develop good habits. So now we have no excuse. We're not going out for movies. We can actually sit down, stay home with our family, and talk about what you're eating and what you want to eat and how to improve your health as a unit, as a family, and have family dinners, have family lunches, stay together, make it fun instead of, you know, thinking what you're missing out on and have this massive FOMO kayak aduh nggak bisa keluar, aduh gimana nih, udah biasa kalau misalnya konsep nyaman atau fun sama keluarga itu keluar nonton film, makan di restoran. Sekarang we can change that. We can learn to adopt habit-habit atau kebiasaan baik dari segi kesehatan, makanan. Mungkin bisa sholat berjamaah. Sekarang makan berjamaah, makan sama-sama, makan sehat. So I know I'm rambling on, but I think it's really, really, really important now that we have time to reset everything from our habits, our relationships, what we eat, what we want to do, and why we want to do them. For me, health is number one because I want to be able to be free. Freedom is a big thing. I want to be able to climb mountains. I want to be able to read books and understand them. I want to be able to learn new languages, meet people without being too scared of like getting sick. COVID is very dangerous. And yes, I wear a mask and I'm careful, but also I know I have the power over my own immunity with the things that I eat and the power of prayer, meditation, and being centered enough that I don't fear COVID, but I take sensible steps so that I do not get it, number one. And number two, I know, I feel like the more I learn, the more I understand that your body has defenses. How do you feed the health instead of feeding the disease? How do you feed your power instead of feeding the fear of, you know, not being able to go out and getting COVID? So my last point, making this long story very short, is do what you can do, like what's within your control. What you can't control, like this pandemic and not being able to get a vaccine, ya itu hal-hal yang kita nggak bisa kontrol. Tapi hal yang kita bisa kontrol adalah apa yang kita konsumsi, apa yang kita makan, apa yang kita baca, teman-teman yang kita sekelilingi diri kita dengan, dan pastinya juga apa yang kita pikirkan, apa yang kita katakan, itu semua bisa kita kontrol dengan istirahat yang cukup, dengan being conscious, dengan berdoa, dengan meditasi. Jadi kita sadar, kesadaran baik kita itu tumbuh. So, good luck everyone with your journey towards better health. I think it's always like, it's such a long journey, and of course there's ups and downs and a lot of bumps on the road, but as long as you have good intent and ask yourself why do you need to be healthy, why is it important, I write it down, like why I have to be healthy and what benefits, apa keuntungan yang aku dapat karena aku healthy. Like when I travel, aku bisa ngangkat tas aku sendiri, aku masih bisa traveling tanpa capek-capek, dan umur aku ya udah nggak terlalu muda. So and I can advance my career even karena, you know, the entertainment industry is quite age sensitive, but guess what, if you're healthy, you can work anywhere, anytime, film anywhere, do an action movie, do a comedy movie, you're fine, you're up, you're running, you're functional. So I really do just want to say, do what you can, start where you are, use what you have. I love that quote on so many levels. So just accept yourself, all your weaknesses, all your binge eating, everything, just accept it, and then slowly make changes, just slowly. Even I am struggling so much with my sugar addiction. It's crazy. I love ice cream so much. And you can still eat all those things, but just in moderation, and know that it's a treat. It's not the main bulk of it, because mental health is also connected to your food. So guys, I hope you found the information useful, dan semoga show ini bisa di-subtitlein cepat, so lebih banyak orang bisa mendapat ilmu dari perbincangan kita hari ini. Okay guys, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mwah. How do we end it? Oh my gosh. Okay.